Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here and I really appreciate your time. So I'm just going to be reacting briefly to the whole thing that is going on right now between Paris Milan and Jouelzy. I was able to watch Paris Milan's video earlier this morning and it really made an impression upon me because, it's always really sad whenever content creators that are on the same platform that a lot of times have a cross-mix audience are feuding back and forth with each other. So I'm going to be reacting to the video, giving some of my commentary and my personal opinions on what was said from both sides, and kind of just speaking about both perspectives, simply because I feel like I fall within the middle of this kind of the crosswords of this ideology. There are definitely points that Jouelzy made that I can understand and kind of agree with, and there's points that obviously Paris made that I understand and agree with as well, because I feel like I'm not someone who identifies as a feminist, and I'm definitely not someone that identifies as a feminist, and at the same time I definitely think there are parts of the Black women in luxury / femininity leveling up movement that I think are kind of giving out some false ideologies as well. But again, I don't understand why each content creator can't make their own content. Why isn't there enough space on YouTube for both platforms to exist, and why do we have to have these if and sort of conversations, or why do we have to position one perspective as if it's so detrimental or so bad to the Black community? Why can't they both exist, and both of the commentary that comes out of both women appeal to both audiences like they do anyway? And whatever you disagree with, you spit out the bones and take whatever is useful to you. I don't understand why it has to become this back and forth situation, but I am going to be watching Paris's video right now. I'm going to be reacting to her video and just giving my commentary.
Don't try to email me. You can't speak.
So number one, I wanted to say this first and foremost. I wanted to say what I don't understand, what I thought was, first of all, very tacky of Jouelzy, was to talk about Paris's petition as if it is directly harmful or like it's automatically a negative for those people who are in other communities who basically meet at different intersections, whether it's queer, gender, sexuality, whatever it is. Why did she need to bring that into this petition? Because this petition really was not about excluding people. That's not really what it was about. It was about addressing the fact that oftentimes when there is some type of activism poster or graphic that goes around that is associated with Black Lives Matter and all these other types of activist groups, the imagery of dark-skinned Black women in particular is used to symbolize strength and power, and all these things that, as we know, can become dehumanizing. That's what her petition was about, is stop using our imagery for these sorts of for this type of activism. Like, it's actually playing into a lot of harmful stereotypes about dark-skinned Black women, and we really maybe need to dismantle the ideas that cause people to always go in the same direction. Like, I'm quite sure there's a reason why dark-skinned women's imagery is always used. That is, again, a part of colorism. So I don't understand, to start off with, why Jouelzy thought it was a good idea to bring this up. So I don't understand that.
Her opinion, absolutely not. She's entitled to her opinion. You have me effed up with you lying on me, though. You lied. I'm going to let you guys listen to this, because Miss Anti-Capitalism, she, of the dark-skinned Black girls that were used as the social justice warrior fighters, she's like, what art? So let me show you the art that I have with your video. It's not no Black women in luxury. This has nothing to do with for the People, the Movement for a Future Without Policing in Prisons, and the petition that was created by Paris Milan, pushing back against the depiction of a dark-skinned Black woman on the cover of this book. I then looked up the petition, and as always, I'm just kind of wowed at how easy it is for us as Black people to overlook the violence in our language.
When Jouelzy says overlook the violence in our language, I feel like that is, again, her conflating like Paris's description of Black women as being, making it offensive, or it being exclusively for cis dark-skinned Black women. And yes, that's what the petition was about. And why is that a problem? I don't understand, because when there's certain activist spaces and safe spaces created online or other places for specifically trans women, I mean, that's like saying that's an issue when the space is specifically for trans women, or when the issue specifically surrounds trans women. So why is it an issue when someone comes up with a petition to say, hey, stop using dark-skinned Black women's imagery for activism? Why is that a problem? Why is that language violence? Like,
and I say this as someone who is constantly talking about the way our language perpetuates violence within our community, but often as someone who does not actually net the violence from the language, because I exist at the intersection of several privileges. So then, by that same logic, you shouldn't be speaking on this at all, because you're not even remotely close to looking like a dark-skinned Black woman, or even a brown-skinned Black woman for that matter. So I'm not often very advocating for myself specifically. I literally am trying to advocate for a larger community that exists around me.
So when Jouelzy says that, again, I'm confused as to, again, why whenever dark-skinned Black women distinguish themselves and try to create boundaries and perimeters around themselves to address a specific issue that in particular affects them, why are we then expected to like hold space for other groups of people? Like, I don't understand that. Like, again, that would be like me going to a rally specifically for, like, for example, that would be like me going to a Pride rally and being like, this is not right. This is not, this is violence because you're only celebrating queer Black folks. You're not celebrating straight. What? Like, that's so weird. That is so strange to even, like, think that way. I don't understand why, when it comes to separating spaces based off of issues that affect that group of people, we have problems more so only if cis dark-skinned Black women are doing this. Like, I don't get the problem. Like, why is it a problem? I'm so serious. Like, we need our own spaces because there's issues that only affect us sometimes. And this petition is about the ways in which that affects us. This petition is specifically to address Colin Kaepernick's book cover. But on a larger scale, there's like, if you go right now and you Google, Black Lives Matter posters, a lot of the posters feature dark-skinned women and little girls. This very much plays into the dehumanizing ideologies that serve to create this narrative that dark-skinned women are masculine and strong and we can take more and we're durable and we should be put out on the front lines because we can take pain and all these things that are negative, that cripple dark-skinned women, that harm us socially, that translate into physical treatment, into real treatment in our relationships. That's actually where the violence lives. I don't get it.
I came back on Instagram because I looked at this petition and the language in it was just offensive. And I asked, are y'all okay? And I only got one DM, so there were not many. I got one DM telling me to mind my light skin bitch.
And Jouelzy admits right here that whatever she thought she was doing by highlighting this particular part of the petition did not warrant her a response from a large group of people. And that's because while there are queer, non-gender conforming folks who don't necessarily fit into this conversation, in particular, and the ways in which masculinity harms dark-skinned women, this wouldn't be their fight. Because if you're a gender non-conforming woman and you embrace, people reading you or receiving you as masculine because that's what you're intentionally trying to project, because you're not interested in falling into gender roles, and that makes sense. And therefore you be concerned about this type of imagery. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand why she felt the need to insert herself here on these points. Like, it's a lot of energy for something that really wasn't about that at all to begin with. So I just don't this was so unnecessary.
Right? So this is why I will not be doing like a public video on YouTube about it, because I am a light-skinned Black woman, and I do think a dark-skinned Black woman would have to be the person to sit up and talk about the politics of this from the ethical space. I mean, I should just let
Okay. And so this is, as Paris will go on in this video to basically say, like, what is your point? What is your point? Get to the point. Get to the point. So Jouelzy makes this claim about the efficacy of Black women in luxury, and then somehow connects that to Paris's petition. And again, okay. So if by ethics, Jouelzy means, again, the language around, separating dark-skinned women from masculinity is the problem that she's addressing, or the problem that she's at least speaking about, or should I say that's what she's labeling the problem. Again, this petition is not for people who don't mind coming off as masculine, who don't mind being characterized as masculine, who don't mind being understood as masculine, and those that most likely be queer or gender non-conforming folks. So this does not apply to them, because your whole mindset will be different from that of a dark-skinned woman who does not want to be read masculine, who does not want to be put in a masculine label, because that's not what she's trying to project. And her imagery, without her consent, is being used to project these things, and that is why it's a problem. And dark-skinned women like myself, and who have deeper complexions than mine, don't want to be read, don't want to be understood as masculine. I don't want my imagery to be used as a freedom fighter, because that dehumanizes me. Oftentimes, it does not work on my behalf. It does not work on my behalf when the stereotypes about dark-skinned women are that we are tougher and more durable and can take pain and we're strong and all of that hasn't served us. It has never served us. So dark-skinned women like myself are trying to change that narrative, because it doesn't reflect us in real life. Because in real life, we're not strong and durable, and we do feel pain, and we do get weak, and we do break down, and we do need protection like any other woman.
I have some notes, so let me just pull up my notes here. I have so many. One day I have to figure out how
to have notes about this.
My monitoring stuff. Alright, so I actually want to talk about, we're gonna go through the petition kind of step by step. The theory that part of this petition, and really a good part of this petition, really isn't so much about the book itself, and really more is a pushback to...
No, it's not about the book itself. No, it's not, Jouelzy. It's about the imagery. That's literally all that it was about. Yes.
Something that went viral on TikTok and Twitter.
No.
There was a comment.
Paris posted her video. She made a video and then posted the petition with the video. Like, I think a few days before the video of the young lady criticizing the Black women in luxury movement ever went viral. Like, they're related in terms of the topic, but they're not related in terms of what Paris was thinking when she made this decision. I genuinely don't think that either of them had to do with the other, or that one was a response to the other. I think that's something that Jouelzy is connecting on her own and trying to make it seem like that's what happened, but I don't believe that's what happened.
Carry on Black women in luxury. So
this is where you got, see, I wasn't even gonna respond to you, but when you start having a theory and it's a blatant lie.
I know that some people, particularly on the YouTube space, want to position what I don't know how to pronounce it's Ghana Jalal's first name, it's like Alexandra or something. But what their argument was about
To be a monolith if you are in some way trying to criticize Black women in luxury. So you're literally validating the claims that the feminists are on the opposing side of Black women in luxury, which a lot of you are, like yourself, and those who are not pro-feminism are on the opposite end of the spectrum. But my thing is, this is just a bunch of, like, okay, this was unnecessary because my petition doesn't have anything to do with this. You're conflating issues that have nothing to do with the other.
Who has a privilege to access these things? And so the argument still continues. And I feel like a certain group of people were still rather insecure about how they could not argue down it's Ghana Jalal's critique of Black women in luxury. And it transferred into this discussion about the Kaepernick book.
So when she says that the reason why the same groups of women with the same ideology who can't argue, who can't, present a logical answer or argument towards the women criticizing Black women in luxury, and this has just been translated to, no. See, if Jouelzy was participating in a lot of these spaces and listening, like actually listening and not listening to criticize or listening to respond, she would understand that these type of conversations have been going on for years. Like, I say about as long as this sort of space on YouTube has existed for Black women, so maybe about 4 or 5 years, I could say at this point. And I remember I used to have these discussions on Tumblr literally all the time back in like 2013. So, I could see her trying to like pen them together, but again, no, this is about that book cover and the timing of the book cover. It's not about anything else.
Kaepernick book cover.
This is a lie. This is an outright lie.
Yeah, I will just end the discussion on luxury and saying that I think the Black women in luxury movement almost always relies on material goods.
It's Botox material goods.
So Jouelzy goes on to say that the Black women in luxury movement is mainly just about, shallow things that don't matter when you put it up against activism and important things, right? Okay, sure. If you want to make it seem that way, if you want to put skincare against, human rights and civil rights, okay, fine, sure. But again, the Black woman in luxury movement, at least to me, and to mature Black women who at least understand things beyond the shallow surface, while yes, it could represent an actual luxury item like a bag or a trip or a piece of jewelry, what I feel the Black women in luxury movement is really about at its core is about Black women learning how to take space for themselves, hold space for themselves, and spend time loving themselves and nurturing themselves so that they can continue to play whatever pivotal role that they already play in everything, because we play pivotal roles in everything, but really making sure that we take time to love ourselves and make ourselves whole before we continue, instead of limping along, instead of, having our mental health all over the place, neglecting our hair, neglecting our skin, and just neglecting ourselves in general to still make sure that we're, here for everybody else. That's what the femininity movement and the Black women in luxury movement is, because for Black women in America, and probably globally, but I know particularly because I'm a Black American woman, is time for ourselves is a luxury, right? Time for yourself, time where you really take the time to care about yourself, to obsess over yourself, to make sure that you are okay, is a luxury. That in itself is a luxury. And so all these other things that are shallow on top of that. But like I said, the bottom current is about, are you taking time to love yourself, to give yourself that attention that you give everybody else meaning your kids, whether you do activist work, your communities, your husband, your girlfriends, your jobs, whatever else you're doing, are you giving yourself that time to really be good? Because a lot of times we don't do that for ourselves. We just don't.
We are talking about Black women love struggle. We are talking about Black feminists in a derogatory term. I often think that we fit into the aesthetics supported by people that are against colorism. Reinvest, re-engage, and amplify anti-Black aesthetics, European ideals of beauty. Again, that's another video.
How does that reinvest?
So I've heard this argument quite a bit on Clubhouse, and I'm very much confused as to why luxury items are a part of a European anti-Black aesthetic. Like, capitalism is capitalism. We understand it. We understand that capitalism is global. But why are we saying that nice things is only... Because when you say stuff like that, what you're essentially saying is that nice things are only for white people. So if you have nice things, then you're being white. So let's go ahead and say if you have an education, you're being white. If you speak intelligently, you're being white. If you're cultured, you're white. If you travel a lot, like, do you understand how ridiculous that is? Once we go down that line of thinking, once we follow that train of thought, that is the anti-Blackness right there. Luxury is not a European aesthetic.
What they instead have turned around and said is that we do not want to be the representation of struggle.
Right. What's wrong with it?
Ghana Jollof, if you're watching this, I said nothing about you in that petition. My petition had nothing to do with you. So you have some third.
And the reason why this is true is because at this time, at least, from what we know, Paris didn't do a video about this. Even if she saw it, she didn't do a video about this. And when she released her petition at the bottom of her video about, in the comments of her video on this book cover, I don't even think this video had made it over to like YouTube and Twitter. I think it was still going viral on TikTok.
It was never about an individual Black woman's ideology. It was always about the imagery and how this is going to negatively backfire on dark-skinned Black women. The fact that she's reaching so much, oh my God.
It's so easy to say that she likes struggle because of how she presented. And I think that sentiment is deeply rooted in anti-Blackness. And so we carry that over to, now we have a book cover that we can say supposedly represents struggle, and then we can tie it into the movement against colorism. Now, I think it's interesting, Paris Milan is not a dark-skinned Black woman.
And this is where you got me effed up.
Oh my God. When Jouelzy said Paris Milan is not a dark-skinned Black woman, okay, I mean, she might not be the darkest, but she's not as light as Jouelzy. Paris is brown skin, and the thing is, a lot of times with being because I'm brown skin, so a lot of times with my complexion is, depending on the season, I can be light, I can be pale, dark brown, or, I could be, in the summer when I get a tan, I can be like a warm, deep, so I don't really understand what her point about that is. I don't understand her calling out Paris's skin tone when Paris Milan is brown skinned to dark skinned depending on probably the time of year as well as who's looking at her. She is still someone who would deal with colorism because she is darker skinned and she's not racially ambiguous. So I don't.
This is where you got me effed up. Don't tell me to argue the talking points because now you're going personal with it, talking about my skin tone. You shouldn't even be having a conversation about this right now because you're not black enough either. The same people that want to claim this reverse colorism are the same ones that's going to perpetuate it. The fact that
Reverse colorism is not a thing, by the way. Colorism can't be reversed because colorism is literally about establishing a hierarchy between proximity to whiteness and proximity to blackness. So within the system of colorism, the closer you are to white, whether it's just your features or your skin tone or a combination of both, depending on where you align, it depends on how you'll be treated. So how would reverse colorism be a thing if colorism is based off of the closer you are to white, the better you'll be treated, the more intelligent you are, the more value you have? Why would white people reverse it so they put themselves... Like, no.
Let's even say hypothetically that I wasn't dark skinned. Does it make my claims less valid? Why does my skin tone have to qualify whether or not I should be able to speak on this or speak on the behalf of dark-skinned black women?
The movement against colorism. Now, I think it's interesting. Paris Milan is not a dark-skinned black woman. It's the first question that I have about this. For some of the claims she makes in representing dark-skinned black women.
Press 1 if you feel that I'm dark-skinned. Press 2 if you don't.
Okay, so I am not going to watch the rest of the video on here with you guys. I'm going to wrap up my commentary. Basically, how I feel about this is that I don't understand why Jouelzy inserted herself here. I don't understand why she felt the need to make a public video, whether it was just on her Patreon or not, because obviously, you know, content can go past a paywall. Because Paris says in her video that someone sent it to her. So I don't understand why Jouelzy went ahead and made this video. Again, I get her trying to advocate for gender non-conforming queer folks. They wouldn't be offended by being perceived as masculine or this imagery that always perceives dark women as masculine, because if you are a gender non-conforming person, then you kind of live in that space where you are not necessarily concerned about gender roles in terms of how you're supposed to look, and you're more so into whatever you want to look like or whatever is in between or however far in the spectrum you want to fall within that given moment. So that type of thing may not be offensive to you. But again, I want to point out this petition was not for those folks. It was not for all black people. It was for, in particular, dark-skinned black women, and how our imagery is oftentimes used to represent strength and, you know, blah, 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 blah. All the things I mentioned in this video, and how, in return, that comes back to bite us in the ass, because in real life we are oftentimes dehumanized, and how this is a part of the reason why this goes. I mean, if you go and look up eugenics, a lot of the things that went into eugenics was somehow trying to scientifically prove that black people, particularly dark-skinned black people, were more durable and could take more pain, and, you know, so you could work us harder, you could, you know, whip us, you can treat us inhumanely, and it's okay because this dark skin is like Teflon, it's like concrete, it's like all it is very dehumanizing language. And why colorism is a negative for dark-skinned women, or should I say one of the reasons why colorism is negative for dark-skinned women, is the same sort of mindset that we think of when we categorize masculinity or peak masculinity as a dark-skinned black man. So the reason why I'm playing into that, you know, those sort of stereotypes will come back and bite us in the ass is because if dark skin makes a man masculine, then what does it make a woman? If light skin makes a man feminine, then what does it make a man? So all of these stereotypes are dangerous, and when you keep using this imagery, you continue to perpetuate the same harmful ideas and stereotypes that harm dark-skinned Black women socially. That's what her petition was about. And she wanted this book that is going to get a lot of attention and will, you know, circulate on the internet. She wanted this potentially very public, you know, very well-known book to have a different cover. That's all of this was about. And again, I don't understand the problem with it. I don't understand why whenever Black women are taking time to focus on an issue that particularly harms us, we have to stop what we're doing and care about everybody else as well. I don't understand why that's even a thing, because in reality, while there are dark-skinned women who are focusing on this petition and focusing on things like themselves and making sure their mental health is okay, and, you know, all the other, you know, layers of the Black women luxury and the femininity movement, and as well as the level up movement, there are still dark-skinned Black women who don't give a shit about any of this stuff, and they're still focused on the things that they feel are important to them. So it's not like we can't do both. It's not like there's not pockets of us doing both anyway. So I don't understand what good could have came out of Jouelzy's video other than this kind of thing. And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, this again puts two sort of ideologies against each other rather than showing them as, hey, we can both exist on the same space, parallel. And it's not about which one is more important or better than the other, because it's just not like that in the real world. It's just not. It's just not. You can care about multiple issues. You can hold space for multiple issues. And one of those issues can be the things that affect you as a dark-skinned Black woman socially the most. That's okay. It's all right. It's not a problem. I just hope this can basically not turn into a big thing. And yeah, that's all I have to say about this. That's all I have to add to this. Thank you so much for watching. If you are feeling me, please comment below. If I missed anything in the video, please comment below as well. Don't forget to give my video a thumbs up, and please subscribe if you would like to hear more of my commentary. Yeah, take care. Bye.